You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributor to Backroom Technician. This week on The Biz, the Truth in Taxation series, and on today's show, the middle class is getting waxed with national columnist and certified financial planner and CPA, Ken Davis.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone, and of course, I am your host, Steve Savant, and the middle class is getting waxed, and here to help us walk through all this, because everybody thinks it's all about the rich, is CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA, Ken Davis. Welcome.
Hey, Stephen, good to see you again.
Hey, you know, we're always talking about we need to do the rich. We need to hammer it. Now, all of a sudden, the new threshold is $450,000 for married couples. There's the new demarcation line. I tell you, that line is so far down the road. It's not even near that. And middle class, everybody says we're defending the middle class. I'm telling you, there's not enough rich people to surrender all assets that they own to even dent the debt. This is going to have to be put on the backs of the middle class. Heck, we're already paying.
Well, yeah, I have a real problem with this whole thing about the quote-unquote taxing the rich. For instance, back in the early 80s, they changed the tax law to start including up to 50% of Social Security in taxable income, and then within a few years, they liked that so much, they upped it to 85%. Well, those thresholds were sold to the American public as being against the rich. And in fact, you could reasonably argue back then that the thresholds of income you had to reach before this was impacting you was in fact on the affluent, okay? Mm-hmm. That fell very comfortably into that most anybody's definition. Well, today what's happened is that those thresholds, those exemptions, were not inflation adjusted. Okay, fast forward 23 years, even small amounts of inflation chips away at that to the point that now we have, for a single individual, the threshold is $25,000. But like our friend on TV says, but wait, there's more. The fact is that they take half of your Social Security, add it to your regular income, they add in your municipal bond income, and in fact, capital gains that you think are only taxed at 15% are actually included in this formula at the full gain. You add those things up, and somebody that's making $15,000 in Social Security, $7,500 goes against it. So just subtract $7,500 from $25,000, and you're somewhere around 18 grand. That's the threshold at which you start to be taxed at Social Security, and this was sold as on the rich. Now, was this a mistake by Congress? No way. Congress understands what inflation does to tax laws and exemptions.
Well, they're changing the rules to even what even incorporates as an inflation
well,
number
that's
now.
Right.
So, I mean, to use one of Ken's famous words, this is insidious. I mean, I hate to say this is utterly insidious. We're looking at numbers and taxing, and now we're talking about, and let me just do this before we go on to our next segment. We're talking about taxing seniors. I mean, we're talking about middle class. Now, this hits our senior middle class hard, right in the middle of their golden years, and these people, our seniors, are going to be living a lot longer than the previous generation.
These are one of our most vulnerable portions of our society, is people that have retired, have worked hard all their life, paid their taxes, collecting their Social Security and their pensions, and they're on a fixed income. And inflation is going to beat them up, as we know, and then they start throwing this on. I did an article before for a 65-year-old woman, single, and showed the impact of making $10,000 more in interest income. At a 25% bracket, you think, well, all she's going to have to pay is $2,500.
Right.
Well, no, because every dollar that she was including at some point included another 85 cents of Social Security. That's $1.85 in income for $1 in income. I mean, talk about government speak in 1984.
What is she actually paying then? I mean,
her net effective rate really was 42%, not 25%. And they keep telling us that we're taxing the rich. These are lower middle income people, and it's been incorporated in law for years. And now the Obamacare tax that's being sold on the rich of 3.8% surtax, guess what? It is not inflation adjusted. They know full well that what they're selling the American people as a rich person's tax will filter down to the middle class in a number of years. They know this.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be sooner than later. I think they're plotting, knowing that those numbers, that the middle class is going to arrive in a couple of years on this issue, and we're going to start paying this. When you think about the Truth in Taxation series that we're doing here, I don't know if we're getting the true representation of what is being taxed. And when people sit there blindly thinking that their marginal rate is the rate, when the effective tax rate on some of this is much more than that. Now, let's just talk about that. Give it a little definition, a little yin and yang. And I know because Ken and I are doing a paper on this, so we're going to put it on the web.
Well, actually, I wanted to touch real quickly on our last segment yesterday, is that we spend $430 billion on compliance. I've got a deal for Congress. They want more money. They want to pay the deficit down. Make the tax law, put it on a postcard, and it can be done. Simplify it, okay? Get rid of all these details and just have income minus a couple of deductions, exemptions, and that's it. Then they release $400 billion they can now tax and put towards the deficit and reduce it. So, you know, if you want more taxes, just make the tax system simpler, take that burden off us, take that money and pay down the debt.
Okay, Ken has been in his pocket protector too long. He wants to take the code, reduce it to a postcard. You're just taking it a step further than what Steve Forbes did, right? I mean, you're just taking it to the next logical step.
Well, there's actually some very intelligent people who study the law that have proposed such things in the past. And if you get rid of, you know, this deduction and that exemption and this thing and that thing, and you have, you know, special rules for capital gain and special rules for ordinary income and special rules for this, you just say income's income. And you get a couple of exemptions so that the people that are poor aren't going to be taxed heavily. You can truly simplify the system, and you can reduce this burden and costs and put all those really smart CPAs that are doing all the taxes back to work on something other than doing tax returns.
When I think about paying an extra $3,000 for Medicare premiums, that could be the new tab just for Medicare. Unbelievable. When we come back from the break, we're going to address how the middle-class seniors are being taxed and targeted, part of our Truth in Taxation series with Ken Davis. And don't forget to enroll on the IULUniversity.com for the best training in education and sales support when it comes to life insurance for retirement income.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, host of the daily internet talk show, The Business Insurance Zone. I've been using Backup Technician for over 20 years for my edutainment workshops, public seminars, and my ultimate resource for my consumer shows. Why? Because it's the best needs analysis and sales support material that addresses almost every financial planning scenario. And now you can test drive Backroom Technician absolutely free for the next 30 days. Go to thebiz.tv and click on the BizBlog menu and sign up for the most powerful resource available to financial advisors. Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant with Ken Davis. And remember, you can order today's material at thebiz.tv. And while you're out there, click on the Backroom Technician icon for your free 30-day trial that offers access to the best needs analysis and client educational materials that address almost every aspect of financial planning. And before moving forward with anything you hear on this show, especially this week and last week, always consult your tax advisor and broker-dealer compliance officer. And we're addressing the entire middle-class seniors and how they're being targeted as part of the Truth in Taxation series. It's hard to believe this. I mean, the government knows that they can't get the money out of the rich. They have to filter this down through stealth taxation. We were told years ago that just on the basis of Social Security, that would never be taxed. Well, that's changed. And now we're talking about a entitlement. Is Social Security an entitlement? I thought we paid into that. I thought there was a difference between an entitlement, and a government giveaway. And are they really parking money aside for Social Security? Answer, no. Even Tip O'Neill, a liberal Democrat, saw this coming 20 years ago. I mean, he had said, heads up, we can't keep doing this. Now, Ken, let's go back down. I'm just looking at some of this. We talked about inflation. We've talked about Obamacare's 3.8% tax that is not going to be inflation adjusted. So heads up, that's coming for the middle class. You're going to pay for this. I don't know if it's 5 years out, 10 years out, but you definitely are going to wind up paying for this, not just the rich. And we talked about the sunset provisions yesterday. And when I'm thinking about Ken's postcard, I mean, that's a fantasy, but let's just say you're in the game, Ken. When we talk about this, what is the problem with guys like Warren Buffett who just say, oh, no, tax me even the more? I mean, because, I see guys like this out on the street, Bill Gates, easy for them to say in their gated communities with their billions, bigs, they already have it made. I see all these guys in the political realm, all in their gated communities, they've already made all their money. They're not going to have any problems with this.
Well, that's true, and it is interesting, and I wonder about the motivations when people that wealthy make statements like that. I guess they just don't feel the pain of the middle class. They don't see having to pay taxes as any big deal because they have so darn much money anyway. So they may have compassion for the secretary. Somehow they don't have compassion for the people somewhere between us and them.
Is it disingenuous to compare earned income to capital gain income?
Well,
is it disingenuous?
Well, I think so. One of the reasons that we tax capital gains lower, well, first of all, inflation by itself will increase the value of a piece of land or stocks or whatever just because they have to catch up with inflation. So is that really a gain? The argument is no, it's not a gain and it shouldn't be taxed. So that's one reason why capital gains aren't taxed as high a rate. More importantly is we understand that businesses that invest money in capital assets create new jobs, which helps the small person, and people need jobs. So capital gains are a preferred part of the tax code for that reason.
When I think about the comparison, because when people don't hear the definitions, and we hear a statement by the great Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, and he says these things, my secretary is paying more in taxes than I am. Well, do you mean because all yours is capital? The rate is, she's paying the rate of earned income, 1040 earned income is greater than his capital gain treatment.
Well, and I think you just made a really important point. You said you're underlining in your language the rate, not the total amount of money.
Obviously
and I
he's
think,
paying more, right?
Well, however, I think there's people who hear that and they believe, oh, she's paying more taxes than Warren Buffett. Well, we know that's not true, but the rate is true. There was an article in Forbes recently that when I was doing some research on this, that's actually proposing just trashing the whole income tax altogether and replacing it with a national sales tax. Well, what's interesting about that is those that have money to buy things pay the tax. Those that save or don't have it or whatever don't. And of course there's the arguments of the poor people that would hurt them. Well, you could not tax food or things like that in the national sales tax so that those folks that need that money wouldn't get hit by it. But no, there's no place to hide then.
Well, think about that. Even here in our state that we're domiciled in, we have one of the most liberal mayors in Phoenix, and he is unwilling to take back the tax on food. He said it was only going to be temporary. Now he can't live without it. Right? And so I just keep thinking, who are we voting for? Are you really representing? I thought you were representing the middle class and the poor by not doing a tax on food, kind of a necessary item.
Well, I get so tired of them telling us this is going to be a surtax. This is temporary. We're going to put another 1% sales tax. And of course, we all know that they're going to come back when that's about to expire and say, oh no, we need it for this, 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 and this. And it just gets, when I came to Arizona, you know what the sales tax was? It was 4%. It's now over 9% here. We had fire engines and we had police cars and we had streets and we had courts and all those things back then and schools. And what have I gained with over doubling the sales tax that goes towards that? And don't tell me it's inflation, because as inflation goes up, the sales tax goes up.
Well, they're coming with the VAT tax. that they want to talk about that.
Well, that's essentially a national sales tax.
Right.
I don't want the income tax and the VAT tax, but personally, if they got rid of the income tax and replaced it just purely with sales tax, I'd like that, because this underground economy of people taking cash, not reporting it, not paying their fair share of taxes would be pulled into it. The really rich people that are buying yachts and mansions and all that other stuff would pay higher sales taxes. This conspicuous consumption, this truly luxury lifestyle, would end up paying a whole lot more taxes as they paid it. And so those of us that don't have as much cash wouldn't have to pay quite so much.
Well, people are moving to states like Texas that don't have any sales tax. Just think about that. And if you really can brave the cold, Alaska may be the way to go. I still hear they're giving you a little bit of an oil revenue off a royalty just for being a resident. Remember, you can watch all this week's shows by going out to our website, thebiz.tv. And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Google+. That's the Buzz on the Biz for today. You've been in the zone, the business insurance zone.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.